the time between Thanksgiving and the year end, more deaths happen than at any other time during the year. Now, I don't have an answer for you why that is, but let's throw out some guesses as to why this time of year people check out.
I think there's a handful of reasons.
Go ahead.
I think health-related reasons is a big one. Heart attacks, things of that nature. I think in lieu of having a schedule and a regimen, I think people throw a lot at their bodies in a short amount of time. A lot of unhealthy foods, maybe a lot of alcohol, very little sleep, constantly being on the go, tons of stress, financial stress, family stress. I think it's like a whole lot of bad on your physical being in a short amount of time.
Are we that delicate that that's all it takes to kill us off? We were a species that could punch saber-toothed tigers in the face. And now a little difference in our schedule and a little different choices, and we're that close to death?
I think so. I mean, if you're already unhealthy, maybe if you're not physical peak going into it, but if you're already unhealthy,
that could send you over the edge.
Yes, and then you have a couple of weeks of just massive stress and poor health. I could see you having like a heart attack during that time. For sure. I can also see a lot of people unaliving themselves. Major depression. Yeah.
That's major. And that is going to be mental health has reared its head in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And we're in denial about that our brains are so far out of our natural state. And a lot of people are trying to keep it together and they're not doing a good job at it. And all the professionals in the medical community, they sling pills. So all they do is they see patients, not people that need to be worked with, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So on our streets, we have mentally unhealthy people. We have 13-year-olds that want to off themselves. Like, we've got a crisis in mental health. And everybody says it and they know that it's there. But what the heck do you do with that?
Yeah.
If we're all so delicate mentally, emotionally, and physically that a holiday with only a couple of things different are enough to kill us off, right? We are a very delicate civilization.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, too, because I even realized for whatever reason, maybe I'm just lucky, I have always typically been a pretty happy, positive person. And I haven't had any major life issues, I think, to maybe squash that, at least not for long. But I remember I was at a Christmas party this year, and I happened to go to the bathroom. It was out at some nice restaurant, and there's Christmas music playing. And for half a second, I heard the Christmas music and the people, and for like a second, it felt depressing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? I don't have anything to be depressed about right now. But for whatever reason, I get it. Like, I just get it. It is. It can be so depressing. And we've taken steps and put measures in place to make it not so. Like we've talked about that, grown-ups don't need gifts. There's some children in your family you want to buy gifts for, great, but we're not going into financial ruin over what? Over nothing. Because it's Christmas? No, we're not doing that. We're not doing things, that you don't want to do, like keep this time of year happy. But, I mean, yeah, our church that we attend had a whole church service. It was called a Blue Christmas. And it said, anyone who's depressed this time of year and you're not feeling very merry, and maybe you don't even want to go to the Christmas Eve service, come to the Blue service. And it's all about just finding hope at Christmas time. And I'm just like, God, it is so prevalent. I don't even know why. I mean, you can have loved ones that you're missing at that time of year.
But that's not depression. That's not depression. So Andrew Tate this morning tweeted that depression is not real.
Really?
Depression is not real. And I want you to take the other side here. Well, actually, take the pro side.
Okay.
And we're going to prove that depression isn't real. Because everybody who has depression, they will defend that, just like the people who are on prescription medication. They're the victims of it, and there's nothing that they could have changed, and their choices were all out of their control, and they have to be on those, right? And if you're a healthy person who doesn't take those medications, you're like, well, no, your choices led up to needing prescription medication. So if depression is something that people are suffering from, right, it is not a disease that visited you without your permission.
Are we talking about in the event that it's not like a chemical imbalance?
Another
Or-
fiction.
You think
a
that's
chemical
fiction?
imbalance.
So
Science needs a control group. What does it mean to be in chemical balance, right?
yeah.
So you would need a healthy person that eats the right diet, has the right amount of exercise and whatever, right? So if you take all of those people and you sample them out, how many of those people that are in the healthy state have a chemical imbalance?
That's what I'd like to see. If somebody who is like, I have no major qualms with my life, I'm a pretty healthy person, I get sufficient vitamins, and
I bet
I still can't make myself get out of bed in the morning.
that they are different than the non-control group, which is people who are in an unhealthy state, eat all the wrong things, don't do any kind of exercise, or don't do anything that's good for their body. The chemical imbalance is just a result of poor choices, right?
Yeah.
If you can go to that control group and say, okay, well, this person has a chemical imbalance, one of their organs doesn't work, all right? Then I'll say, you get a pass because your body's not in a natural state. You are diseased.
Like if
and
you
you'll be
literally
treated.
aren't, like they say vitamin D, for example, you can feel some symptoms of depression if you are deprived in vitamin D. So are you saying like if your body really can't, for whatever reason, maintain vitamin D, and then you have these feelings
you
of
have an
depression?
actual affliction that's outside of your control. And what we'll probably find is a really small percentage of the healthy group would have anything that's in failure, because that would be something that is actually genetic. The whole big group of people who suffer from chemical imbalances are doing the chemical imbalances to themselves by those choices. So in that same group, there might be 0.01% of people that actually have an ailment. And you're like, okay, well, how does your kidney not work? Oh, you do this thing that caused your kidney not to work. Those are choices that made your kidney not work. It's not genetics, something outside of your control. It was your choices that you made. And that's the distinguishing factor between the two, is whether or not you contributed to the chemical imbalance, which everybody is, right? If you can say, these people who do these 7 things can run a marathon, and these people who don't do any of those things cannot run a marathon. Is there a disease that causes this group not be able to run marathons? Or is it they're just making different choices, and we're not going to hold that against them, but we're not going to let them come out and say, I have marathons disease, right?
Yeah.
No, you just made choices that make you not a good marathon runner. If you want to run marathons, go do what these people do, and then far fewer of you will be able to say, I can't run marathons. And so that is the support of what Tate said, which we take the medical industry and we lay down victim status because that industry just wants to sell pills. So if they can convince you that you need Ozempic, right? And I come and say, yeah, you don't need Ozempic. You need to make healthier food choices, and you don't need Ozempic, right? They're going to say, no, out of their control. They need Ozempic. And look at these results. This person lost a bunch of weight, and they didn't have to stop eating all that garbage. You're wrong, Joe.
I have a cousin, and thank God their doctor wasn't just a med pusher. I have this cousin used to live in California most of her life, if not all of her life, and then moved to Oregon. And shortly after she moved, became very depressed, lost a lot of motivation, didn't want to do things anymore that she used to like to do, went to the doctor, and she's like, I don't know, ever since I moved from California, I'm just not blah, blah, blah. And he's like, wait, move from where? And she's like, well, I was in California, and then I've been here a while. And he's like, wrote a prescription for vitamin D. He's like, you're not seeing the sun. You're used to the sun your entire life, and then you come to a cloudy environment, take vitamin D. And
Yep.
that's what it was.
So be it.
Yeah. In fact, I keep thinking that too, because Northeast Ohio, it's gray and cloudy and dreary and dark and cold, and people start to get that seasonal depression. Is that vitamin D? Is it just I'm not out doing fun things like I normally am doing, and I miss those fun things?
So the information isn't being kept from you. Like you and I both, we're interested in this stuff. So we look into the things that contribute. You have a whole group of people that don't know how this meat suit even works, but it's not because the information is beyond them, right? They want it to be a silver bullet pill's fault, and they want it to be a disease where they don't have to make different choices, so they can live in their misery and blame something that they don't control. And then people like you and I say, yeah, there's a slim majority of people who can't help it, but you're not one of them. You make better choices, and you shed the depression or the chemical imbalance or whatever else you think you're deficient in, on just learning how your body and your mind is supposed to operate, and give it that. Don't make little asterisks and say, yeah, I really should be doing vitamin D, but, right, this essential oil, right?
Yeah. So how does one know then if you truly do have some sort of deficiency that can actually cause you to have depression? And it's not circumstance-based, it is literally in your brain. How would one even know when we are in this culture of doctors giving you a pill no matter what? You know, it could be like, well, maybe a loved one passed away and you're experiencing grief, and that's clearly a cause of your depression, but here's a pill for it.
Because we're so delicate in that department that it does not take us much to fall off. Just like the people who this time of year die because we're already on the edge of death when we go into it. We can't handle plus or minus 1% more of something. We're at that edge. So same thing. If we're so unhealthy, we're just being kept alive by the consistency of our regular day, it's not going to take much to throw us off of that freaking edge as well. So we are, the title of this episode is going to be, we are too delicate for any kind of changes. And the only way to not be depressed and to not have the diseases that we have and to not suffer in this world. So when I ask you when you're ready to check out, you're like, yeah, maybe today's okay. Because you're suffering. I don't blame you. But it takes somebody to audit your world, tell you everything that you're doing wrong, and draw a connection between, instead of saying, oh, this thing is not your fault, say, yeah, here's all the things where it's your fault. Clean up those up, and then come back to the well for information. And then you can fill in the gaps of things that maybe are loosely your fault. But if you're breaking all the rules on your fault end, you can't expect anybody to help you in any meaningful way when you're killing yourself in every other department.
Yeah.
And that's the tragedy, is that we are saddling our kids and not being parents and putting them right on the edge of the same disease at a young age, and then they can't handle and manage because we're terrible parents. We don't know what to tell them because we're just letting society mold them and teach them and whatever. We've offloaded it because parents are terrible.